Welcome to the Let's Talk Conflict podcast. We're a group of young people and adults with experience of the care system, and we define ourselves as care experts. In today's episode, we have two senior trainers from LEAP joining us. We have Amanda, who has personal experience of the care system from a few decades ago, and also she has many years of working with young people and adults in the care system. We also have Tony, who currently works in the care system and is a foster carer as well. And I am Shanika, and I'll be hosting today's episode. We're looking forward to sharing our reflections on the care review with you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Conflict. Today we'll be discussing the government recent announcement that they will be reviewing the children's social care system in the UK. So today we have Amanda, Evie, Jasmine, Anya, Alice, Tony, William, all participating. So I'm gonna go straight in and start off with the first question. And that is, what were your initial reactions to the announcement of the review of the care system? And I would start with Amanda.
Thank you. I think it was great to see, and for me, was thinking it's very much overdue. It was work that desperately needs to happen, and I'm hopeful for it. To me, the document is kind of like, it looks great, it reads great, and it feels really like, are they actually going to be able to implement it? Will they be able to make change? And then I'm like, am I just being a bit like before they've even started?
And then I'll move on to Evie. What were your thoughts around it?
Thank you. I don't think I was as positive as Amanda. I think some of it looked really good. I think quite a lot of it looked good on paper. I think quite a few bits were missing. But I don't want to be too negative, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt to at least get the ball rolling a little bit and give them a chance to follow through with what they're saying and what they're talking about. So yeah, that's my stance on it.
Anya?
I don't know, I kind of had a bit of like mixed feelings towards it. On one hand, I was kind of like excited, but on the other hand, like, I wouldn't say worried, but like a bit humming and hawing about it, because like, you know, whether, you know, what they're saying will, you know, take time, or whether it will happen straight away, or, you know, whether it will happen at all.
Thank you. Then we'll move to Alice.
Like Amanda, I feel like it's desperately needed. But also like Evie, I'm very dubious. For me, the care review, it's like you're holding your breath a bit. Are they going to actually do it well? Or, you know, in the summer, they're going to come up and be like, oh, this is what we've decided, and pretty much change nothing. And even if the review's great and then not done, how long is it going to take to implement? Like, do you know what I mean? I hope that the change that's needed happens, and I hope that it's not, or we'll change the drastic things, but all these other things can wait. Like, it really does. Don't just put out fires, like stop them from happening completely.
Thank you. And Tony?
My immediate reaction was about time. And what I'm hoping for is that, you know, the Children's Act made a lot of good promises. Okay, there was a lot of good things on paper, right? But that's all it is, it's on paper. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that the review is going to look at, you know, now we've had time to look at how this is actually working, what do we need to improve on, and how are we going to do that?
And then we'll move on to Will.
My first impression on the news.
Yes.
I was like, holy shiznit, finally.
Thank you, everybody, for what you've just contributed. I can agree with what most of you guys say. I'm also quite optimistic as well as excited, but a bit worried that it might not live up to what it says, but hoping and trying to stay positive at the same time. But I've had experience where you read all these policies and they're so amazing, but then when it comes to being implemented, it isn't that great. But I think overall it's a good thing. I'm going to move on to question 2. In terms of the care system review, what positive change would you like to see coming from it? So I'll start off with Anya.
What I would like to happen is for social workers to keep to their word, if that makes sense. So if they say, oh, we're going to I don't know, give you your home grant money when you're this age, just to see a positive with social workers, care leavers, young people still in care, and carers to sort of bond more. Yeah, because it's you can't all work in a separate environment. You all have to kind of stick together, otherwise it's going to be a bit of a train wreck.
Alex, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I would like there to be no postcode lottery, so the disparity between where you live, what borough you live in, is very drastic. I came from somewhere where there was literally nothing, and we really didn't have a lot. We had to fight to even get the same amount of leaving care grant as other places in the UK, because we literally had a quarter of what other people were getting. I mean, obviously that's changed now, but I would like to see policies in, we have the law, that's fine, but then the policies that local authorities write are almost gatekeeping access to what the law states you're entitled to. So I would like that to stop. I would like it to be much more accessible. I also would like more accountability. So anything that happens between a person in care and a social worker / care leaver PA, if there's complaints made or issues before it gets to the complaint stage, I'd like that to be actually dealt with. I would also like a limit on case numbers, and if there is one already, it should be less, so social workers can actually do their job and can afford to care without being burnt out. Yeah, basically that's what I would like to change.
Evie, go.
Sorry, I was just thinking, I completely agree with Alice on what she said and Anya, but I think we have all got 1,000,001 things we'd like to improve on and things, but I think definitely I agree with taking accountability. So, making sure that if you say that you're going to do something, then they follow through with it. I think that's something that social services, social workers, personal advisors, if they say that they're going to do something, then like I said, they need to follow through with it. But also I think that the social workers and people within social services, they need to start using their voice as well. If they're unhappy with something, for social workers to take a step back and realise that we're supposed to be on the same team, we're supposed to be working together. So really take a step back and look at how we can make that work, because it's not just all on the young people. A lot of it is needs to be taken responsibility by the social workers, instead of saying, oh, well, we haven't got enough funding, we haven't got enough this, we haven't got enough that. We need to see how we can make it possible, I think this is thing, I think we all appreciate, we've all, at one point, we've all been told by a social worker how much work they've got on, when they've got other different cases, how much paperwork, whatever they've expressed in some way, they've got a lot of work on and stuff. I've been told that millions of times, and I've tried to be as empathic as possible and think like maybe they've got into this job with a good heart and everything, and then they've been overrun, like, you know, because they've realised that it's underpaid, that things really aren't there to support young people. They've got a bit disconnected and stuff, and they've just, you know, they're just trying to do what they're doing and whatever and stuff like that. But it's like, still, I think if that were me, I'd still be using my voice. I'd still be saying something. I'd still be trying to find a way of fixing this. And I think also making sure that there's like a clarity on things, whether it be care leave statuses, what young people are entitled to, what are the things that they may be facing in future, you know, like different forms of living accommodation and things like that. I think there needs to be a lot more clarity on things, and also a lot more equality on different care leaver statuses, because, you know, if you're one form of care leaver to a different form of care leaver, it's all about status, and that then in turn comes around on what you get, what you deserve and things like that, what you're entitled to, from the local authority, which is wrong, because each different borough, it's to their discretion what that qualifying child is entitled to, and that's wrong, and that can't come from young people. That needs to be done with the people within the system. So I think a lot of it comes down to accountability and social services, people within social services using their voices.
That's a good point, Amy. And you know what the sad thing is as well? Like, there's loads of statistics. Well, they're trying to like record data better on care leavers, but it's so bad and it's hidden away. It's hidden. Like when it comes to like our like rates of employment, stuff like that, it's very hidden. But education is, you know, it's there in the public view. And I feel like it shouldn't be hidden. It shouldn't be hidden from the public. It shouldn't be hiding somewhere. You have to dig to find that information, because ultimately the government and social services should be responsible for what the outcomes of young people in care are. I'm not blaming them and saying it's their fault, but they should be actively seeing this, and it should be in the public domain, because at the end of the day, the public is paying for the social workers and the government to do their job. So it should be in the public domain to say, look, what's happening here? Why are these young people going through the care system, coming up with no GCSEs, no employment? It's there, the data is there. But a lot of people in the public don't know about it. So they need to actually make these things more transparent.
I was thinking about the kind of the core of that care review, which is they were saying, well, you know, the aspects to focus on was safety, stability and love. And I was thinking about what everybody's saying. Actually, Alice, I thought that was really powerful words you used about that, you know, people should be able to afford to care. And then Evie, just listening to what you're saying, and it's just like there's something in there for me about actually it needs to be safe enough for social workers as well to actually have a voice. Because my kind of sense is that sometimes it isn't.
Yeah, I agree there, 100%.
And there was something in there about like, okay, so the care review might focus on the needs of the young people, but also the professionals involved as well. Like, how do we make it safe for them to speak, to give them the stability that they can afford to care without being burnt out, and to be able so they can use their voices.
When I did my course, I wanted to be a social worker. You get thrown in on placement. You know, when you're doing the placement, you can actually see the challenges when you're working with the young people. You know, when you go in, because I've been on both sides. I've been a young person and a trainee social worker. Most of the young people don't trust you. And to build any kind of relationship, you need to have that trust. So it's hard being a social worker. And you know, there's also that fear over you as well, that you can be stripped off, you can actually lose your livelihood. And you know, a lot of people that go into social work have families, they have mortgages, so they just need to do the job to get paid, like literally just need it to survive. And what I find is if you're too compassionate, if you're too empathetic, you get burnt out because the system doesn't really support social workers as well, in that you don't have a lot of supervision, you know, you have a high caseload and it's quite stressful, a lot of the stuff that you're dealing with, and you're not trained properly. Because I did the master's program and I'm like, there's no way you can do 4 days placement and loads of coursework. That makes no sense because it's on theories that you know you can't really apply to real life, you know, and you have those coursework over you, you have to pass the course as well. So you're stressed, you're not learning. I was stressed because I'm seeing all the challenges my young people are going through, heavy emotional stuff, and I have coursework to think about as well. Plus there's challenges in, you know, with what I'm writing up and how, you know, building that relationship. So it's a very challenging course. And if you have empathy and emotion, because I was in care myself, so I could actually feel what some of these young people are going through. So for me, I'm like, I can't do this. I just can't physically do this because either I have to be really selfish and just shut down all my emotions and not see the young person and get a job, or if I do it the other way, I'll get burnt out. That's the options that's given to social workers.
It's interesting that it's called a care review. Yeah, because it seems like that's the part that's missing the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I'd want to see improve is the relationship between social workers and social workers and whoever they're working with, actually. So that, you know, it's what's already been said can actually become a reality, that becomes a partnership, that when it's not working, the social worker becomes an advocate and is challenging the system, and actually working alongside each other more can be achieved. So yeah, that they focus more on the relationship, starting from qualification.
Yeah.
Start from qualification, that they spend time and look at what's the relationship we need to create with our clients so we can work alongside them.
I think that far more training needs to be involved for foster carers. It's not enough and it's not good enough. Like if they trained the foster carers about safety, stability and love, I think we'd have a much better time with it.
Something that's just come into my head actually was recruitment of foster carers, actually using a more kind of values-based recruitment process. Might actually, you know, I was getting sort of hearing lots of people saying that people are still doing it just for the money and those kinds of things. That if they can tweak the recruitment process so that we're sort of working at a more personable level, I wonder whether that would have an impact on how foster carers really are coming into the world of foster care and how they receive the training as well.
Yeah, you're right, you know, because I see like posters, do you have a spare room? Like,
yes.
And it's like, no, do you have a kind heart? Do you care about like
yes.
Could you do with an extra so much money a week? No, don't put that on a bloody poster.
Yeah, go Alice, yeah.
I was just going to say what Amanda was saying then. I think that really, I personally, we touched on it in our group. I think that should be the same with social workers. They are human. They are an interaction with us. And sometimes that's the only point of, like, you know, like for emergencies, say that's the only point of contact that we feel like we can go to sometimes. Yeah. So they themselves need to be like tip-top condition, you know, like have kind, loving hearts, be doing it for the right reasons, same as what a foster carer is.
When you look at social work, and this is what attracted me to social work, when you look at the values of social work, about, you know, making it a fair and equitable society, you know, challenging injustice, that's what social work is all about, and helping the poor and all that kind of stuff. It's no longer about that anymore. It's about, you know, providing a safety net. And there's no preventative social work at all. There's nothing around helping communities, helping families. It's either you're there to do you're there when problems arise.
Yeah, like 100%, that's on my list as well, like prevention. Things need to be done beforehand, you know. they just wait until a crisis occurs, and then that's what they do. Then they'll say, oh, we'll intervene then, and they don't listen to, like, I think mental health is becoming a bit more of a thing now, but I think for a good while they've not acknowledged that mental health, like parents' mental health as well, that they could do things to help prevent a crisis from occurring, you know, from putting different charities or counselling, therapy sessions, in place beforehand, or like a person of support to go to, you know, like if a parent's struggling, you know, financial worries as well. A lot of things does boil down to money. You know, they could appoint different people and different charities and different places, instead of just saying, oh yeah, that's really hard, but, you know, oh, terrible teens or whatever, or, you know, oh, you're doing a really good job, and, you know, everyone has difficult times. I think they don't listen to the actual cries for help. They just like push them off. But when someone's expressing that, like, they're really struggling, they should try and do some sort of intervention before the crisis occurs. You know, they wait until they've got certain protocols that they wait until something bad happens. You know what I mean?
I wanted to add to what Evie said. I also mentioned about, you know, with children and their parents. So what I find is a lot of the parents, not necessarily that they hate their kids or want to do bad things to their kids. It's oftentimes it's poverty. So when you're in poverty, you haven't got the money, the stress will make you do stuff sometimes that you don't want to do. And instead of social services going in, where in the past they would have preventative community social work, that doesn't happen anymore. As soon as something goes wrong, the kids are taken off these parents. And to note, people who are rich, that doesn't happen to them. It's often the people that happens to.
Really quickly as well, I really do feel that there should be, standardized, mandatory training for PAs.
Yeah,
that is not a requirement at the moment. They do not require any form of qualification, or like any training, and that is just not okay. Like, you're 17 one day with a social worker, you're 18 the next day with someone who is not. I mean, they may be qualified, you know, they may have degrees in, I don't know, psychology, whatever, but they are not trained as a PA, and they are basically social workers. They are pretty much the same thing, but they have no training, and they are setting, not the PAs, but the system is setting us both up for failure. If you're not trained as a PA, you can't do the job that you're employed to do, and if you're a young person that needs someone that has the training that a PA should have, you're not going to get that either. So that's something that really should be addressed.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Yes, Evie?
Sorry, I just wanted to say quickly, like, we've touched on obviously like the training and everything, and like Alice were just saying, there should be a mandatory level for personal advisors. Like, I was really shocked to hear that social workers don't do training around childhood trauma and like things like that. That to me, that's things like that it's paramount. Like, they need to do it. They need to have training around childhood trauma, like building healthy relationships, things like that. Also, prevention, you know, crisis prevention training. You know, they need to have a better standard of training, like, because whatever is we've got at the moment is just not working to us from our side, from a care experienced perspective. I don't feel like there's any empathy. They can't see where we're coming from. They can't see anything from our side, or they can't, or they won't, whatever it may be. But they need to really start looking about, you know, they need to start looking at them issues instead. You know, they need to start putting themselves in the child's position about what trauma they may have gone through, they may have suffered, and what they may be going through at the moment, how they can actually improve that for the young person as well. You know, how they can try and be there for them as a supportive supportive adult, supportive professional or whatever. So yeah, I think the training needs to be upped.
Yes, thank you, Evie. I agree as well.
I was just going to say, if like they kept families together, because they're saying there that they'll keep families together, but they don't. The easiest thing to do is to separate them. So I've got 5 siblings, and we couldn't all go together because a foster placement can only have up to 6 children living there at the same time. So you usually get split up into 2s, and the younger ones go together, and then the older ones go together. But one question that I've always wanted to know is why there's no asking the older children whether they want to be adopted. The decision is always the younger ones will be adopted because they're less likely to remember, or it's easier for them to settle in an adoptive home. The likes of me, as I was 9 when my 3 younger siblings got adopted. And I would have wanted to be adopted so I could be with my sister, but we never got that option. So to keep siblings together, yes, it might be hard, but why not adopt all of them to the same home instead of fostering like the older 3 and then adopting the younger 3? Like, that's going to make us feel like we weren't worthy enough to be adopted, or they weren't, like they were just chucked off to the side kind of thing. And it's just like we miss out on our siblings' life because of the actions of adults. Like, it wasn't our fault, so why do we need to lose our siblings?
Yeah.
So what change do we want to see in the way young people in care are seen and treated?
So it's seen pretty much as equals, not just like where people would go, he's in care, that means he must be spoiled or things like that. Like, just like, so I'm in care, that what does that do? We're all in the same, like we're all pretty much doing the same work here. That, like, the care is the life outside of where we are now, not in, like, we're all doing the same thing. Just because how I got here was different to you a lot doesn't mean anything.
I kind of agree with Will. You know, I think equality kind of, you know, comes into it. You know, we don't get enough treatment as like other people would. So like people treat us different, like we're glass. You know, and it's not the way that you want it to like be. You want to be able to feel like you fit in rather than feeling like constantly treading on like eggshells and stuff like that. I don't know. I suppose that's probably what I would say.
And I guess also, like, you get like there have been some teachers and some support teachers that have been like, oh, just because he's a supported one, he needs to be pretty much carried through it. Like, there are like some things where I was like, I can do this easily. You don't need to literally hold my hand through it, absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Like being treated like a newborn baby, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like carrying you through everything.
Like, try to let people know that supported doesn't mean stupid.
I think as well, talking about education, I don't know if this happened to anyone else, but social workers would literally take you out of your class to do a pep meeting, like a personal education plan. And it's like, you're telling me that my education is the most important thing, but you're taking me out of my lessons to talk about my life to like 5 different teachers and like my foster carers being there and stuff. Like, I did grow up in a loving home and stuff, and I was lucky to be placed with foster carers long term. But education side, I didn't really do well in school. Like, I was just told all the time, I won't pass my GCSEs and stuff like that. Statistics show that there's loads of the majority of people growing up in care end up in prison or fail their GCSEs, be jobless, get pregnant young. I mean, prime example of getting pregnant young, but it's like the educated teachers as well, they need to be educated on foster care and stuff and the feelings of a child in foster care, like if they put themselves in our shoes and how we would feel, because there's been many teachers that have sat there and outed that I'm in foster care to the whole class, and then I get judged for that. Like I got bullied through primary school and high school for many years about being a care kid. And my mum didn't want us and stuff like that. And the teachers would be like, if you don't sit down and behave, I'll bring you a foster carer. And then the whole class finds out you're in foster care. I think teachers need to be more educated on children in care and their feelings behind people knowing they're in care as well, and be a bit more sensitive to the subject. I just thought, once a teacher breaks my trust, I'm not going to listen to them anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do what I want in their class. Like, they lost my respect.
Jasmine?
Thank you, Shanika. I mean, just touching based on just generalising what everyone has put in, just not having that labelled name just because we've had certain upbringings, and this is just not just because, you know, people that's in foster care or anything like that, just generalised kids, you know, being brought up by other people other than their own sort of biological parents. But just sharing sort of based on my experience, whereby I was brought up in a family home, but we would not be allowed phones to bed, or a young person wasn't allowed to play Call of Duty because of all the shooting and, you know, just things like that. So if they want us to be brought up as normal children, we should be able to see what normal children experience and go through and not take that away from us. But as we get older and put sort of two and two together, we'll think, but why wasn't we allowed things like that? You know, and we're going to start questioning ourselves. Why are we not normal? Why do we have to go through these stuff? You know, what makes them, you know, why didn't we deserve these kind of things?
They say to you, oh yeah, you can go out with your friends, but we need to check with your social worker first. If you want sleepovers, we have to check first, but yeah, it'll be fine, you know. And then it comes back saying, oh no, they have to be checked and stuff like that to make sure that they're safe.
Yeah,
I agree with that, like completely. Like the names, I just thinking back, I hated, you know, like looked after young person or lap reviews or foster child, all them different like labels. They were horrible. We're just children. And like I was really lucky with my foster parents, and you know, I had a good relationship with them, but at the same time I think we could have been helped with social services a little bit more without having to put so many labels on. Like we couldn't be a normal family because of social services, you know what I mean? But I think if I'm looking at a positive change that I want to see in the way that we as young people are treated, and the way that we're looked at, I would say the way that we're treated, I would like them to take more time for the young people to experience happiness, you know, have a bit of happiness, find out what makes them happy, and just like try and give them a little bit of happiness, you know, because like that's all a young person wants, you know, is to be happy. And sometimes they end up doing things that in turn isn't very good because they just want to escape, you know. A young person just wants to get away from that down environment and escape to somewhere else. So I think bringing some sort of happiness into a young person's life, I think that's really needed. I think taking time to see things from a young person's perspective. It's all right, all good and well saying, oh, is this good enough for your child? But you really need to start thinking about that, like imagining if this was your child that was going through something like this, and how would it be for them? How would you feel? All that, and taking the time, you know, to build a relationship with us. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Evie. I think as well, there's a lot of negative stereotypes and stigma around being in care and being a young person from care. And I find sometimes that like a lot of the people working with you, because of these negative stereotypes that are in the media, you know, even in movies around, you know, being in care, like people don't see you as a child or as someone who has you know, had a difficult childhood. You know, they just see you as, you know, not as a child. They don't see you as a child, and it's hard for them to actually have that empathy because sometimes they don't believe that you'll achieve. Where, you know, because there's so many negative results on care leavers. You know, when you go to someone, nobody encourages you. So like for me, with education and stuff, nobody took the time to kind of motivate me or you know, encourage me. I had to find that myself and push myself to do that, because I just don't believe that you're going to achieve. So I think there needs to be more positive role models within the actual care system itself. There needs, because there's a lot of young people in care who are doing well, as you know, in whatever they're doing. There's even examples of care leavers within society, you know, who have achieved a lot, but we don't see these images. We always hear the negative stories.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be an active step taken whereby we see positive images of care leavers in the media, within social services, and also our peers as well, like within like young people within care, you know, have other young people come back and like mentor and pair up with these young people and give them, because we need hope. We need some form of hope, you know, and we need to see people that are doing well, that looks like ourselves, for us to actually believe that we can achieve as well. Alice, did you want to say something?
Most of what I wanted to say about the way I was seen and treated was from social services themselves. I mean, obviously, I had some amazing social workers, few, but some. But I wanted to say that I want them to want to get to know us and not just read what's written about us, because some of it is not true. It's not true. And like, if we trust you, then we're going to be a lot more responsive, and the relationship will be like fruitful for both parties. So spend time in trying to cultivate the relationship, and things I think will go smoothly for both like parties if that's the case.
I'll probably say, just leading off from what Tiff was saying, in regards to social workers actually listening to what the young people, how the young people are feeling, instead of actually going off with how they've been trained, because things that we learn in general, what we study about, is just, that's just the basic. So just going off with my experience, I'll probably say PAs should have personal conversation with the young people sort of outside the homes. But again, this is just based on experience, because I felt under pressure to open up, because before a meeting I would get told, you know, if you don't say this or if you don't do this, you'll get punished after. So it's the pressure of knowing, even though you're in a different room, you still know what happens behind closed doors. Whereas, you know, it's they go based on assumptions a lot, which I experienced abuse from one family, but somehow the PA didn't see that. So then I was put with a lovely family, but yet for some odd reason the PA would see that they weren't so good. Having more personal talks and meetings, and giving that option for, you know, for the children in care, just so they won't feel as pressured to not open up, basically, and just seek the help that they need, or even support.
To add to what Jasmine said about the foster carer, it's so interesting that I actually know a foster carer, and she's lovely. She's the one that actually helped me to get into care when I was going through my horrible life. And what she actually tells me is, like, she'll have the young people, as soon as she makes headway with them, they would take the child away from her.
Yeah.
And I had another friend as well. She was also fostered. She had a foster carer that was horrible to her. She would take her money. And what I find is a lot of these foster carers, sometimes the bad ones, are friends with the social workers. So the social workers don't listen to the young people. I don't even care what's going on with the young people. So I feel there should be more accountability on that side.
Yes, 100%.
There needs to be more accountability when it comes to stuff like that. I think I'm going to move on to the fourth question. What change do we want to see in relationships between young people carers, social workers, and other professionals? It's quite a long question, but anybody want to go first? Go, Alex.
I literally have just one thing that I'd like to see changed, and is authenticity. I want there to be authentic relationships. I want there to be like genuine like intent to be there, to care, and integrity within the job people are doing, not just ticking boxes and making sure you're turning up. There being something behind the meetings, making sure, like the bureaucracy aspect, like leave that at the door. Also tick the boxes, but make sure that you care at the same time.
Tony.
More partnership working.
Yeah.
So social workers, young people, foster carers, all working together to achieve the same aim. It's been interesting for me listening from the point of view of a foster carer. So one of the biggest problems that I've experienced is, the amount of social workers we've had in 10 years. And when you do get a social worker, like you said, every now and then a good one comes along. And then very quickly, they're either promoted or they tell you that they've gone to work somewhere else. So, and then it makes it harder for the next one, because you've just experienced a really good social worker. They get on with the kids, they get on with you. And then if the other one doesn't show up like that, of course, it's going to put them in a difficult situation. And I think that's the key issue for me, is like there's no relationship a lot of the time. They come and it's like do the checklist, but they're not really interested in like what everyone else has been saying, like really having that relationship where you can take the risk and talk about your life and share stuff you wouldn't with everybody else. But there's too much attention put on the what do we need to get ticked off the list.
Yeah.
Evie?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think from this, just realizing that we need to work together. We are a team, and we can only improve things by working with each other. And like what Alice was saying, you need to be working from the heart type thing, and doing it with love and compassion. You can't just say that you've got that. You need to really mean it.
Yeah.
I've been trying to think about this one. I think what I would like to change would be like maybe how things are handled. So like young people's behaviors handled, how like social workers get advised on how to handle it. Like what else? I don't know. I think everything needs to come from a different view. They seem to go into being a social worker and sort of like cut off all emotions. So it's like they don't have an emotional, attachment to you. So it's like you don't like, I don't know how to say it. It's like there's nothing there that you and a parent would have potentially. It's like a separate thing, and they're like, you're a project to me. You don't mean as much as what my child would, so I'm going to treat you different.
I feel like the way everything is set up, instead of us all kind of looking at the actual issue and the people that are causing it, they engineered everything so we just be at each other. And I feel like that's the way the government have got us with social workers. Like we're fighting each other instead of us all turning around and thinking, hold on a minute, like we're not the cause, you're not the cause, it's them. Like, because you feel it, it's palpable. There's a tension in the room every time. You're an annoyance, they're an annoyance. Like it's always like it is conflict all the time. But I feel like if we found ourselves on the same side, because I think technically we are on the same side, but it's like a subset, like the issue is why we're both there, but social workers hold the keys to us having success or not having somewhere to live or not having access to furniture, stuff like that. And like obviously it's not their fault they can't give it to us. If they had an abundance, or if they actually had the bare minimum, if they had it there wouldn't be an issue with us getting it. Like all of the issues come from the government and local authority policy, and the people that are making the laws and the rules, the policies, have no idea what they're talking about. Basically, if we work together, I think we can actually make change.
Yeah, there's too much going on for people to think, right, this is what needs to be done, and that's how this situation should be handled. So I think, strongly to do with like handling situations better. And this is like speaking from like my past. So the social workers I've had haven't handled my behavior correctly, which I think then kind of like traumatized me a little bit by the way that they did handle it. So yeah, I think more like, along the lines of being better at handling things.
Alex?
I just wanted to say that I feel like more open conversations should be had across the board. So I found a lot of the time it was conversations between my parents' social workers, them like my social workers with me, and then me with foster carers, then foster carers with my parents. It was all like these conversations going on separately and then being fed back to you. Obviously, like if you're all just sat in the same room, maybe with a mediator that's in the middle and independent, like not a review, because that's talking about practical things like your health and stuff, but like just like meetings you can go to where you can have like a healthy dialogue, a safe space, and you can really like talk about any issues without fear of repercussion of who you've spoken to. It doesn't leave the room, stuff like that. Like if you all had a conversation together instead of separate conversations that all feed into each other, and there's room for like misinterpretation and stuff like that. I feel like if it was like an open, safe conversation that you could have, then maybe things, you'd feel like you were all in this together, and you wouldn't feel like it's all the adults against you. Do you know what I mean? Or you're just absent from the conversation that's going on. I feel like that would be a way of strengthening relationships between like everyone involved.
Yeah. So a common ground of understanding and empathy.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with what everyone has said. Yeah, it's just simple stuff that are free,
Yeah.
Respect for each other, being open, being transparent, simple things, just treating each other like human beings, and seeing the care leavers as children first, rather than, even if they have behavioral difficulties or whatever, understanding where that's coming from, and meeting them where they are. So I will go on.
And hopefully they could be a bit more reliable, so like people don't have any of that, like, oh, I'll give you a ring back in a week, and then you don't hear from them for like a month.
Yeah.
Like, because all the times I've had like one hand at the phone, like it's been like a week, it's been 2 weeks, so I can actually continue with my life.
Yeah.
Like put my life on hold while I'm waiting for them to phone back.
So yeah, definitely, we definitely need respect. Jasmine?
No, I mean, it's only a short piece for me. Just, of course, like we can be here all day and forever, listing everything. There's no ending list. But just, I think social workers or anyone in that sort of social department needs to focus more on what the young person want or feel. I mean, we've got to respect they've got guidelines and policies to, of course, work by. But it is a strong point for them to, of course, focus more on what we want to be able to, because it's us facing the end result of it. It's us, by the time we get to a certain age, we get thrown in the big world, as they call it, where social workers, they'll get paid, foster families, they'll get paid regardless what work or effort they put in. So just that, really.
I don't know whether we can speak on this because I've never experienced this. I don't know if anyone else has, but I am quite concerned for the people in care that have severe disabilities, mental health issues, if they're institutionalized, like within mental health, hospitals, stuff like that, or they're in specialist homes, I don't know whether we can talk about it, because like I've never experienced it, but I'm quite I want them to have a voice in this. Like I really find it, like, I almost panic for them, because like we had voices, we could say things, we weren't listened to, but they're definitely not listened to. Like, who's talking to those people?
Okay, thank you, everybody. We're gonna wrap up for today. We've discussed a lot. So thank you everyone for participating. That concludes today.